Well, hello, my dear viewers, my dear friends. Welcome back to another video. As I promised, this time I'll be focusing, as you can see by the title, on the new Assassin's Creed Odyssey main protagonist, its relationship with the first civilization, and how that all ties into the modern day. Now let us start by the beginning. Who is the main protagonist? This is where it gets tricky, because they decided to go all out and make one protagonist that can actually be two different people. Yeah. You can either play as Alexios or Kassandra, which would be okay were it not for the explanation they gave on how you can do so. You see, Alexios and Kassandra are not related. In fact, if one exists, the other does not. If you pick Alexios, Kassandra doesn't exist, and if you pick Kassandra, Alexios doesn't exist. How does that play out? Apparently, in the modern day, in the beginning of the game, and I believe that given this information that I'm about to tell you, the game will start in the modern day section. It would make no sense for it to be otherwise. Apparently in the modern section, Layla is still looking for, she started to look for First Civ information and artifacts, possibly along with William Miles, Desmond's father, that we saw they have met in the last game. However, in that search, she finds a book written by Herodotus, which apparently will be a character in-game, in Animus, that will accompany the main protagonist and recount the adventures, and Layla will find that book. And that book will mention a legendary Spartan hero. So far so good. Herodotus is known in history to be a little bit of a storyteller. He likes to exaggerate his own stories, so him not mentioning the gender of said hero is sort of okay. I'm okay with that. The problem is what comes next. Apparently, if you remember back in Origins, the way Layla relives Bayek's memories and Aya's memories is that she's found their mummies. She's found Bayek's and Aya's tomb. She finds their mummies, she plugs the animals into Bayek's mummy, supposedly, I don't know how that could work, but she can still remove DNA from there, probably blood samples. And then she finds Haya's mummy, she does the same, she takes a little sample because she couldn't take the whole body up, and she's able to relieve some of her memories as well. Apparently, it's going to be the same shenanigans again, because it's her animus, that's how it works. And she'll take the blood from a skeleton she finds possibly near that book. But the problem is, they said that the creative director, Jonathan Dumont, I think, I don't remember if he's Jonathan or if it's called something else. Allow me to check really quick. Yeah, I think it's Jonathan Dumont, yes. I know the senior producer is not that. Yes, so we'll go with Jonathan. If it's not Jonathan, then I'm sorry, Mr. Dumont. But if your name's not Jonathan, then I'm sorry. He said that she'll find that skeleton, and that when she puts the blood in the animals will be like, oh, we can't decide whose blood this is. So you have this guy, and you have this girl. You choose. And I'm like, sorry? I'm no expert geneticist, or I'm no DNA expert, but I think that I can safely assume that's not how DNA works. I think every person has its own DNA coding. I think you can't just have two people who are so similar in DNA coding that you can say that you can fool a machine like the Animus. The machine lets you relieve genetic memories, for Christ's sake. So, and here is the problem, because apparently if one of them existed, the other did not. So how can the Animus, a scientific machine, a powerful machine that allows people to relive genetic memories, how can it be fooled by the uncertainty of DNA coding? I mean, you could argue that, like, the skeleton is really, really old, and I don't know, maybe some of it, maybe it's so mixed with First Civ DNA because we know that they are First Civ related. Alexios and Kassandra are First Civ related, whichever you pick. They are the grandchild of King Leonidas, and King Leonidas is already said to be a descendant of the First Civ, so by extension, either Alexios or Kassandra are descendants of the first civilization. You could argue that the blood is so mixed, they have such a high percentage of First Civ blood that it could possibly be fooled. But that whole thing of the DNA going like, oh, I don't know, you pick. For me, it pains me a little bit, as much as I love the ability to choose a character. I would prefer it be done another way. If you remember, if you saw, the initial rumors for Assassin's Creed Odyssey stated that the game's protagonists would be siblings. Alexios and Kassandra would be brother and sister, and you would be able to pick one another, and the stories would actually play slightly different. I think that could have been a better idea. But for that, you'd have to find both skeletons. In the place where you find the Herodotus book, you would have to find two skeletons. Which could be possible. Lila found Bayek's and Aya's skeleton. I mean, granted, she only found Aya's skeleton after, like, 2 or 3 or 4 sequences. I think it's after you kill the guy with the hidden blade, who you think it's the snake, but it's not. I think that's after that sequence, possibly the first or the second time you get out of the machine, that she starts thinking that Haya, or sensing that Haya is there, and she goes and finds the coffin. But I think that could have been a better idea than just to piss on the Animus and say the Animus was confused and he was like, oh, I can't decide. So what? If we move forward again to history, will that happen again in more dated and fully written time periods? Will they say, oh, here's ancient China, you have a skeleton, oh oops, you have between a male and a female protagonist? I think this is the first and one of the few choices in the game that will bug me. Not by having to make the choice, I have no problem in the matter, but just the way the choice is executed. How they tied it into the game and forcibly eliminating one of the players, one of the characters, in favor of the other. It makes no sense. It feels like a loss. They both seem like cool characters if they were explored in different routes, because then it makes them virtually equal. Like, there are no differences between Alexios and Kassandra. They'll both have the same skills, they'll both have the same animations. The only thing that changes really is their voice. And granted, I've seen the E3 gameplays, and I gotta say, is it just me, or is Kassandra more expressful than Alexios? If you compare the whole gameplay video they revealed at E3, they revealed it with Kassandra, and then people were able to play with Alexios. If you follow through those, I believe that Kassandra has a lot more expression than Alexios. Right on the first scene when they disembark on the beach and like they puke after the storm, I think Kassandra is much more expressful of the action itself. Alexios is just like, and it's like no expression at all. Later, when they arrive at Kira's outpost, And when Kira throws the knife, Alexios is like, you missed. But Kassandra, if I remember correctly, I haven't re-seen that video yet. But if I remember, I haven't rewatched the video yet. But if I remember correctly, she actually goes like, you missed. Like, it changes completely the character. I gotta say, I'm gonna pick Kassandra just because, I don't know, just because. I looked at both of them and I say, I want Kassandra. It's that braid though, that braid. Anyway, now speaking of the first civilization, as I've said, they are descendants of King Leonidas, which is said to be a descendant of the first civilization himself. Given that we are in ancient Greece, there's a high chance this is the perfect period, as I've stressed out in the last video, this is the perfect period to touch upon the first civilization members, some that we know of, others that we could know. Again, the ones we know are Juno, Minerva and Jupiter, their Greek counterparts being Hera, the goddess of woman, marriage, family and childbirth. Minerva is Athena, goddess of wisdom, handicraft and warfare, and then we have Jupiter, which is of course the king of gods, the god of sky and thunder of Greek mythology, Zeus himself. Now, we are most likely see these gods one way or another. Poseidon as well, Hades has been mentioned, Poseidon has been mentioned as well. Icarus, the protagonist's eagle, is called the eagle of Zeus. So, yeah. I've heard and I saw the Owl of Athena somewhere on the gameplay videos and some people mentioning it. The only one that we have yet to hear or see, at least to my knowledge, in any of the gameplays and in any of the trailers is Hera/Juno. Given that Juno has such an importance in the Assassin's Creed lore, especially in the most recent games before Origins, and then most recent, as much as it pains me, in the comics, I think it's highly probable that we will be able to see Juno, or just the first Civ at all, because for crying out loud, the main protagonist wields a piece of Eden right from the start. If they don't touch upon the first civilization, I think it will be a very very missed opportunity, and one they might come to regret in the future. So, yeah. One thing that I think will return, and I think it should return actually, because I found it fun as hell, just not the way it was implemented in Origins, are the Trial of the Gods. If you remember and if you played, the Trials of the Gods in Assassin's Creed Origins are like these monthly or bi-weekly events that they say, oh, there was a glitch in the animas, and there's Anubis here, there's Sobek there, and then there's Sekhmet. No one likes Sekhmet because he's way out in the desert and you have to run miles to get to him. There's not even a fast travel point there. But anyway, no one likes Sekhmet. Actually, Sekhmet is one of the coolest one. A giant lion, tiger, cat thing. It's just... and he spits fire, for crying out loud. He's awesome, he's awesome. But the thing with those events is that you get to a point, you've played through them so many times. I mean, I haven't played them too many times because I don't have the patience for that. I played them like twice each, and just to get the items. And the items are nothing really that special, because you can get better things in the world. That's the problem of RPGs, is that no matter how special an item is, you can always get better out in the world. But if they implemented the Trials of the Gods in the game from the start, things could play a little bit differently. Let's assume that the level cap will again be 55. Granted, the cap is only 55 when you get the DLCs. First you go up to level 45 in the hidden ones. I think that's the new cap of the hidden ones. And then you can go up to 55. But there's a thing with the Curse of the Pharaohs DLC that I found. You can transform your account into, I believe, a 50 level account. From the main menu, you can choose to upgrade your account to level 50, effectively bypassing all the grind that you have to get to level 50, because it's 10 levels more. And let me be honest, I don't think I would have been able to get to level 55 with all the DLC content if it wasn't for that. With that, I easily got level 55 in the first hours of the Curse of the Pharaohs. But that doesn't come to the point. Let's imagine that the main game cap, it's either 40 again or 50. Let's put it at 50. The Trials of the Gods could be something that they implement in the game as an end game challenge. Imagine you have like Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, Athena, Hera, like all the gods, not all the gods of course, but the main gods. Let's say the gods that Kratos kills in God of War. Let's say Ares, the god of war. Let's say those gods that Kratos kills, like the most known gods of the Greek pantheon. And that you have them as endgame challenges, like top tier. Like the kind of tier you can't defeat without the toppest of gears and the toughest of weapons and with the greatest defense you can muster. Imagine that. And then they all give you specific, unique items that you can't get nowhere else in the game, and nothing else you'll get in the game will be better than that. Granted, that breaks it a little bit, because if there's no end game after content, then that makes it a little bit redundant. I'm not saying to make them all on the same level, but let us say we get at level 40, you get the first trial of the gods, like really hand up in the game. You get your first trial, and let's be honest, you can get to level 40 possibly without going that much further in the story. Like in Origins, I decided to get to level 40 before finishing the story. I was just running around doing side quests and exploring the locations, and I got to level 40 easy before finishing the main game. I went to fight the last few bosses, which I will not reveal who they are, but I went to fight the last bosses and I was already at level 40. So it will be easy to do so in Odyssey again, I believe. But imagine you get to level 40 and you get your first trial of the gods, and you go climbing up until you reach level 50, which is Zeus. Like Zeus has to be the top. But you think there's this cadency, that there's these stairs that you can climb all the way through the gods. How could they do that? Not by an animus glitch, which is the way they done it in Origins, and I don't think it works for Origins because it's post-launch content, but for launch content, I think they could base it off an illusion from A Piece of Eden. Like, the first civilization were this advanced and powerful race. Who's to say they couldn't create illusions of themselves in the world that could actually manipulate the world and have some sort of degree, but also being defeatable? Imagine, I had this thought a few moments ago before recording this video. Imagine the trials of the gods of Poseidon. Imagine if you fight Poseidon high at sea with your ship. Imagine the sheer size of it. Like, all the other trials of the gods could be in land, but imagine if Poseidon's trial was at sea. You fight Poseidon with your ship, and he sends these waves that you have to face head on, like in Black Flag, when there were storms and those tidal waves would come, you had to face them head on or else you'd take damage. That battle could be the same way. Imagine that, you circulating Poseidon with your ship and sending volleys of arrows to him, and he's just like sending you water bullets perhaps, and just sending waves to try and take you off your path, changing the winds, forcing you to change your ways and maneuver to properly get the wind and to be able to circulate around him. Imagine the sheer size of it. Some pretty close God of War style of thing. If if you catch my drift. Sorry about that. Whew. 20 minutes of non-stop talking does that to you. Jesus. Sorry about that. Okay, what else do I have to say? For the modern day, they say that it's highly passable, it's highly optional for players who don't want to experience the modern day. That part is fine with me. I will experience the modern day because, seriously, let's be honest, the modern day is perhaps one of the few things that still holds me in Assassin's Creed lore. Of course, the in-game Animus stuff also does, but finding out where they'll take the modern day is really what gives me hope. Layla's story has given me hope in Origins, and I hope that it gives me hope again in Odyssey. Speaking of Pieces of Eden, just a little bit before I go back a little bit to the story of the protagonist, the Spear of Leonidas is the only confirmed artifact that to be in the game. But let's be honest, it's Assassin's Creed, and you cannot have Assassin's Creed without at least one apple being mentioned or being shown. There could also be a sword or a staff, because we have a Greek myth, the myth of Perseus defeating Medusa, and he used a Sword of Eden. Ancient Greek, Perseus, Medusa. We saw Medusa or a Gorgon in the trailer. So, Sword of Eden, anyone? Imagine playing the game and you have on one hand the broken spear of Leonidas and in the other you have the Sword of Eden. Now talk about overpowered. People were saying that, oh, he has a piece of Eden, he's overpowered from the start, that's not funny to play. Imagine that, having the broken spear of Leonidas in one hand and the Sword of Eden in the other. Talk about overpowered. But yeah, I am mostly positively sure that another piece of Eden will show up, possibly an apple, or possibly a sword. I would like to see a sword, or maybe even the staff is more complicated, because the staff is associated with more with religion and whatnot. You have the papal staff, we have the Tsar staff. Moses, I believe, in Assassin's Creed lore, used the staff to part the Red Sea. It was Moses, right? Never mind. My Christian lore is a little bit rough around the edges. So if I said something stupid, just ignore me. Going back to the protagonist, there are some few things that I wanna talk about before we head on out, because we are already running into the half-an-hour mile, and that's how I like to keep my videos. Now, the main protagonist, either Alexios or Kassandra, will be rejected by their family after an unknown tragedy, probably caused by the cult of Cosmos, which are the enemies of the game. I believe that they are the equivalent of the Order of the Ancients, or even a part of the Order of Ancients. Cosmos in ancient Greek translates to order, organization, beauty, and harmony. So, yeah, the whole thing of freedom versus order is going to start to surface here, just as they say it was. So, Pythagoras was the first one to use this term, apparently. Now, just out of okay, so we won't be seeing Pythagoras in this game because he was born a little bit before the events of the game. So, but yeah, I believe that the Cult of Cosmos is possibly either a branch of the Order of the Ancients, because as I've said in the last video, the Order of the Ancients was founded in 1330 something BCE by the pharaoh whose name I won't remember, but you can go and check the video to find out. And so this is the group that's harassing the main protagonist's family, and it will work like the Order of the Ancients worked in Assassin's Creed Origins. You'll probably start with the few people you think were responsible, but then you'll dig the bigger picture. You'll dig the bigger conspiracy, and you'll start hunting them down. Now, you start the game as a little kid. I believe you start the game as a little kid. I would say, based on the trailers, and I'm awful at giving ages to people, but I would say that we start around with 7 to 9 years. So 17 years later, in 431 BCE, the path to become the legendary Spartan hero will begin. So at around 24, 26 years that the character has will be their journey. And granting that the Peloponnesian Wars end in 404 BCE, we will see roughly about 30 years of the character's life. And that's very, very cool. That's a very long period. I believe that the last time we saw that long of a period was with Ezio. That we saw like 20 years of his life in Assassin's Creed 2. I might be wrong. The dates of the latter Assassin's Creed are a little lost on me, but I think that's it. The last one that we saw so much of his own life was Ezio. And we'll see if they maintain that course. Now, just to finish it up, there's one little thing that I want to stress out, and it's something that's been bugging me a lot. I know I read it somewhere, but I don't know where. If you guys have, please do give me the link to the news, because I've read something that says that you'll be able to either fight for the Delian League or the Peloponnesian League. And that makes absolutely no sense. As I've said in the last video, the Delian League actually loses the war. The Delian League is dissoluted after the war. Sparta wins with the help of the Achaemenid Empire. So making you fight for, not making, but allowing you to fight for the Delian League is basically saying that you're gonna lose in the end. So becoming the legendary Spartan hero really doesn't add up. I hope that's fake, because for a game that prizes itself in historical accuracy, at least to a minimum, let's not forget that they need to have some creative liberty. But I think that this sort of liberty is a no-go. Because, yeah, like, there was no chance for the Delian League. The Delian League was defeated. Sparta created an empire. Athens was ruled by 30 tyrants, as they were known, and there was no democracy in Athens. But a little bit after, in like 1 year after, in 403 BCE, Sparta was overthrown, and the democracy was restored again. Possibly under Spartan rule still, but no, it was restored by an Athanasian general. So there is no way that the Delian League can emerge victorious out of this. Like, unless they say, oh, you can fight for the Delian League, sure, but there will be a point in the game where you will experience defeat. That could tie in when they say there's like multiple endings, which is another thing that bugs me a lot. But I'll have to research a little bit more on that and to make some proper assumptions. But if they say they're gonna have multiple endings, this could be one of them. Like, you side with the Delian League, you fight all the way until the end, and then you lose. Possibly you die, and your story ends there, and in the modern day you're like, wait, no, this can't be it. That would be very funny, actually. Imagine you going and be like, okay, so we can fight for the Delian League, but that makes no sense. And Lyle just thinks, what the hell, I'm gonna do it, let's see what happens. And they go until the end. Maybe they think, maybe this is how it happened. Maybe they don't know, maybe they doubt the sources, the history. Who knows? The Animus has been able to show very different sides to stories they knew weren't true. So, maybe they think like that. And they get to the end, and Alexios or Kassandra just dies. And they are like, no, this can't be. So they go back, they do everything again. And they actually do the Peloponnesian victory. Which again, makes no sense, because there's the synchronization issue. Because if you go against the actions of your ancestor, or the ancestor that you are seeing, not necessarily yours, you will get this synchronized. Much like you cannot slay more than 3 people because your ancestor didn't kill innocent people. Like, a Magi is supposed to protect the people, not killing them. An assassin stays his blade from the flesh of an innocent. A Spartan hero doesn't fight for the Delian League. They fight for the Peloponnesian League, and the Peloponnesian League wins. As I said, I hope this is not true. I hope that they don't go with that level of choice, because if they go, well, it will hurt my little side of historian in my heart. Especially now that I know that the Peloponnesian League actually won, and that there's a chance that we can play against the Peloponnesian League. There's an image that shows that. You know, that marble image that shows that? The one that's been colored afterwards. And it actually pins, I think it's Alexios' side, it actually pins him against Sparta. And then Kassandra's side, it pins her against Athens. Like I said, if they both existed, that could work very well. Imagine in one side of the story you have Alexios who fights for Athens, and on the other side you have Kassandra who fights for Sparta, or the other way around. But that will only work if they both existed in the world. If they were brother and sister, and if the one you choose would fight for Sparta and the one you wouldn't choose would fight for Athens, or vice versa. The one you choose, you would fight for Athens because you were betrayed by your Spartan family, and maybe in the end you could have a change of heart, killing your brother or sister and replacing them. I mean, that would make no sense at all, but we are theorizing here, we are going on the stratosphere here. And it could make sense to be able to play for one side or the other. But the way it stands now, the way the game stands now, it doesn't make sense. The Delian League lost, and there's no way that any other outcome could come of this. But we will see. Maybe I'm jumping the game a little bit. I'll wait and see, and I'll see what choices we are really allowed to make. And also, how would that choice work? Like, you choose Alexios or Kassandra, you play a little bit in the game, and then you have like what, 2 missions, and one's to fight for the Athens and the other is to fight for Sparta, and you choose and the game branches out from there? How would that even work? But you know, I'm running ahead of myself. I'm putting the chariot in front of the horses, and we don't want that, because then the chariot would not go its course. I need some water. I've been speaking a lot. You guys will probably be tired of hearing me. If you got here, well, let me say you are victorious. You have held your ground stead and fast, sir or miss. You have held your ground very well, and I salute you. But for now, it's my time to say goodbye. I'll be back. I don't know when, but I'll be back. As the good old Schwarzenegger said, I'll be back. And I'll see you then. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please do give me your opinions in the comment section down below. Your feedback is highly important to me. And let's theorize, let's discuss the topics I've brought to the table. See you then. Bye bye.